What's actually far more disturbing than that is the release of new figures showing assaults on Met police officers have increased by 37% in the past 3 months. The Met said 2,027 assaults were recorded between May and June, compared with 1,475 in the months in 2019. Police bosses say it has been fueled by scuffles during protests and operations to shut down unlicensed music events. But what is clear is that our police are under attack from all angles. They're now filmed by baying members of the public desperate to show discrimination, but they're unable to release their own body cam footage. They're now accused of racism simply for arresting criminals, and they're now beaten up by members of the public on a regular basis. Well, Ken Marsh is the chairman of the Met Police Federation. He joins me now. Ken, these figures are absolutely appalling. Is this all down to lockdown?
Good evening, Dan. I don't believe it's all down to lockdown, but it obviously has a rider to what's been taking place. And as you've very well described prior to me speaking, there is a reticence by my colleagues now to deal with things instantly because of the just torrent of abuse we are getting from some sectors of the community.
Well, Ken, I had to say, when I saw these figures, I did wonder if there was any correlation with the Black Lives Matter movement and what we saw happen in the US, because there has been a lot of acrimony expressed against police forces across the international media and in the media in this country. Do you think the two things could be linked at all?
Yeah, very much so. Absolutely. There is some correlation towards the way certain sectors of our community are behaving following the horrendous death of the individual in America,
George Floyd,
and what followed from that. Absolutely, there are correlations to it, but the problem is, a lot of people, or a lot of members of society, are using it as a tool now to just cause complete, I don't know what, against my colleagues. It's just absurd.
Really serious stuff. Do you worry that it could actually end? The end result could be a death of an officer at this rate?
Of course I do, Dan. I worry about that every single day. The injuries towards my colleagues, and you've highlighted some of them, but not all of them, are horrific. And they are, as you quite rightly say, every single day of the week. And we sustain them over and over and over again. And the government play lip service to it. The Mayor of London plays lip service to it, and really no one actually gets to grip with the fact that, there is legislation there is powers to deal with assaults on police, but it's not dealt with correctly because they seem to think it's just okay, we're cops.
Well, it seems like so many of our leaders are no longer standing up for the police. That's what's making me angry. I do believe Home Secretary Priti Patel is an exception to that rule. Do you agree with that?
I do, yeah. I mean, she has been more robust in a lot of areas, but it suits the political climate at the moment for her to be so. Let's not kid ourselves. This is the same government that reduced our numbers by 20-odd thousand. This is the same government that did an awful lot of things to us prior to what is now happening. So, you can put the kid gloves on for a while, but I'm always very dubious of the fact that it is the same individuals that are trying to reverse what they actually caused.
I know, but the problem is that every time you get a politician like Sadiq Khan, like Dawn Butler, continuing to slag off, because that's what they do, the police in this country, you are increasingly encouraging more attacks on the police. I really do believe that. I think there is a direct connection.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's very sad that people have positions of power and positions where they are listened to use them sometimes in the way they do. I just find absurd. I find it absolutely incredulous that they can behave in this way, and my colleagues pay the price for that, and it's not right, because ultimately, without law and order, what are you left with? And that's the big question that you want to start asking, because we're getting close to the point where, if my colleagues stop doing what they're doing, Where do we go then?
Totally. And that is why, on a personal level, and I've got police in my family, I've always had respect for the police. Now, that doesn't mean that every single time they pull me over or decide to talk to me for some reason, I think that it makes sense, and it might be a little bit annoying, it might be frustrating, maybe it holds me up in my day. But fundamentally, you have to show respect for that, because without it, society breaks down. And that's what Dawn Butler and her ilk are starting to encourage: a breakdown in society, a defunding of the police force, a lack of respect to our police. And I think it's a very dangerous, slippery slope.
I totally agree, and it's very sad, really, because we're held up around the world as, you know, the best police force that there ever existed in terms of transparency and everything that goes with it, and we still have the naysayers who want to come out of the woodwork and behave in the way they do, and ultimately we are doing our jobs. We police by consent, and we always have done, always should do, and should be transparent. I've no issue with any of that. But we're getting to a point now, which is a tipping point, where it's getting rather dangerous and worrying. How far are we going to go with this? Because it will put people off.
And no one is, and no police force anywhere in the world, Ken, is completely perfect. But why don't those politicians remember back to the day of the London Bridge terror attack, to the day of the Westminster terror attack, when our police officers ran into the line of fire, and they do that time and time again. And people forget that, and it makes me sick.
Well, you only have to remember back to last week and the week before, Dan, when my colleagues were running to individuals who'd been stabbed and killed, one of them, and my colleagues were first there trying to save their lives, doing everything they could to catch the perpetrators. You know, this happens and gets unfolded daily in London, and it's my colleagues that are first there and deal with it.
You're so right, Kim. You're so right. But you keep fighting the good fight. Look, these figures, so disturbing. Assaults on officers up by 37% in the past 3 months. 2,027 assaults on the police between May and July. This can't go on. It's appalling.